You could make the argument that this video is coming out now due to it timing well with a new season of The Mandalorian. But, in actuality, ever since I beat Skyrim with only the Flame spell, I got loads of requests to beat it with the Frost and Shock equivalents. I just figured today that I would get around to the Sparks version, and that to make things a bit more interesting, I would make it a character-based run, so with that in mind, let's find out, can you beat Skyrim as Emperor Palpatine? Okay, so first things first, I am using the same mod as I did in the Obi-Wan video. Basically, it turns the Stormcloaks into Jedi, and the Empire into, well, the Empire. Base Skyrim and this mod come with plenty of dark robes and hoods, so the outfit shouldn't be an issue. The mod comes with a Force Lightning spell, but as you can see, it does absurd damage and costs almost no magicka to cast, making it pretty busted, at least in the early game. So yes, while the Force Lightning is technically more accurate, and Palpatine did use a lightsaber in the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, it is strictly a Sparks only run when it comes to combat. I also have a few other goals in mind other than just rushing through the main story. You can probably guess what at least one of them is, but more on them later. Now with all that out of the way, let's begin. Character creation is a fickle thing. If I was just doing a normal Sparks run, then I would have chosen a Dark Elf as they start with the spell. But because we want to look like Palpatine, I instead went with a Breton, as they are supposedly the most magically gifted of the human races. Not that it really matters, as there's a Sparks tome in Helgen itself, so it's really just for the first encounter where I'll need to act defensively. Anyway, back to the character, I make his eye colour yellow, the area around said eyes red, and then make him as old and decrepit as physically possible, along with some grey thinning hair. It looks good enough for me, besides he will mostly be covered by a hood once we leave, so it won't really matter in the grand scheme of things. The worst soldiers ever somehow don't notice that their own emperor is one of the prisoners and are about to execute me when I am saved in the nick of time by a dragon and a lone stormtrooper whose eyes seem to be working underneath that helmet. As mentioned, we just run along until I get to this cell, and after I pick the lock, I can grab the tome and begin to fry people. As this is a tutorial, it works well dispatching them in a timely manner. The only problem is that for now, it runs right through all of my magicka relatively fast, and I can't really regen it quick enough to make a huge difference just yet. At the very least, Hadvar can pick up the slack for now. After zapping a few spiders and a lone bear who wasn't doing anything wrong, I leave the cave and begin heading west. Normally, this leads you to the first 3 standing stones, and while the mage stone will be a great help for leveling up destruction, what we really want is just to the left, as there is a small bandit camp occupied by, what else? Bandits. One can't effectively run an empire with ruffians skulking around the forest, so I get my hands dirty and give them all a taste of my deadly jazz hands. After you hit someone with lightning, there is a brief damage over time effect, so until I can increase my overall magicka pool, I will probably be firing a lot of burst sparks to try and conserve as much magicka as I physically can. Anyway, the reason I'm at this bandit camp in particular is for these black robes laying on the ground. Not only do they help me look the part, but they just so happen to come with a 50% faster magicka regen enchantment, which is more than I could ask for right now. Making it to Riverwood, and the very first thing that I do is sell all of the loot that I procured at Helgen, to which makes me bank and allows me to get enough experience to increase my speech level and by proxy, my main level. It should come as no surprise that I take the magicka boost and the ability to cast novice level destruction spells for half the cost. Now, while there are black hoods in Skyrim, they are all far too tight to the wearer's face and don't really fit the Emperor's look. Thankfully, the mod comes with the ability to craft Jedi and Sith robes, so with a little bit of leather, I can craft a fitting hood, along with some boots. Don't want the Emperor to get taken out of commission when he accidentally stubs his toe on a random rock. So if I'm going to make this build as effective as possible, I am going to need to focus on 2 primary skills. They are Destruction, of course, and Enchantment. The Spark spell, being a beginner level spell, will very quickly become obsolete when enemies' health pools and defenses begin to increase. To that end, I need to level up Destruction to maximize its damage, and then supplement that damage by increasing my enchantment skill to the point where I will be able to cast the spell for next to nothing. If I cannot take the enemy out with raw power, I will make it so they must try and outlast a war of attrition. With that in mind, all of the money that I make in this run was used to purchase soul gems and enchanted equipment to level the skill up as fast as feasibly possible. Even with a solid plan and specific non-story based tasks set before me, I still have a certain flow and way I like to play through the opening hours of Skyrim, and they are about as vanilla as you can get. First off, I head to Embershard Mine to demonstrate to the bandits that now call home what happens when your body absorbs just a little too much electricity, and then, once they are all twitching around on the floor, take that progress over to Bleak Falls Barrow, where it becomes clear that many things in this game have little to no shock resistance, as long as they aren't Alduin or Storm Atronachs. Fighting opponents who use magic themselves is also a breeze, as shock spells drain magicka with every hit, along with health. And considering I am firing a constant beam of electrical energy for this entire run, enemy mages should never have any magicka to use unless they are carrying potions to restore it. I thought that maybe the Overlord would have posed some problems, as I am fairly squishy all things considered, but no, he was barely even able to land a hit on me as I just fired a few blasts and then backed away anytime he did one of his long wind-up attacks. With him out of the way, I grabbed the Dragonstone and head off to Whiterun to progress the plot. This is also where I started breaking down and enchanting random items in my inventory to get as many enchanting levels as possible. I also put some magicka regen enchantments on my clothes. Honestly, I would have been better off with Fortified Destruction, as then that way the spark spell would cost less to use, but until I get a few more perks in the tree to really improve those types of effects, this is going to be the better option. I can deal with that later, for now it's off to the first dragon fight. Sparks isn't terrible against the dragon for what it's worth, but yet again, I am still running out of magicka way too fast when it comes to bigger encounters like this. Fortunately, you only have to fight 4 dragons in the story, 2 of which are Alduin himself, and all of them have you accompanied by backup, so I'm not entirely doomed just yet. I managed to be the one that lands the killing blow, which was nice, even though it doesn't really matter who gets the kill in Skyrim given its leveling system, but still, just let me have this. As my destruction skill was nearly at 30, I decided to hit up a nearby fort to take out enough bandits to level it up, which would then allow me to take the first rank in the augmented shock perk for an extra 25% damage with shock spells. In other words, from 8 damage per second to 10 damage per second. Once I hit level 70 in destruction, I can increase it by a further 25% for 12 damage per second. And that is the maximum amount of damage I can do with it outside of fortified destruction potions and the restoration glitch, which I will not be using. There is only one glitch that I want to show off today, and it's one that I only learnt about recently, but it's really just to save on time, so we'll go over that shortly. Enough getting sidetracked with the main plot, it's time to get started on my more specific challenge related tasks, first of which is the Civil War questline, where I will be siding with the Empire if that wasn't obvious enough. I believe that this is also the very first time I've sided with the Empire in a video, so all you wild Stormcloak haters and people who care about the virtual politics of a nearly 12-year-old video game can shut up now. Unlike the Stormcloaks who send most of their potential new recruits to an early icy grave, the Empire instead just tasks you with taking out a fort overrun with bandits. Which, now that I think about it, also sounds like a death sentence considering they expect you to do this alone. I am of course fine as I can shoot blue death from my fingertips. Your average recruit though? Yeah, not so much. However, I will say that the major drawback of increasing my skills is starting to take effect. I may only be level 8, but the bandits are starting to upgrade, which does not bode well for the rest of the run. I am able to take out the bandits here, but not without having to abuse some of the game's systems. Like how for some reason the ones inside the fort cannot seem to leave, so I had to pop in, do some damage, and then if I thought they were going to close the gap and kill me, I would find an exit, leave, and then just wait for a moment and go back in and finish the job. With the last of the bandits dead, I return to the Legate and Vader and get sworn into the Empire, which is just a little odd given the nature of the run. First up is stealing the Jagged Crown from Ulfric Jedi. The tomb is far away, and the only location I have even remotely close by is Whiterun. To speed up the journey, I steal a horse because the Emperor is evil, and it just may get me there faster. I honestly have no idea how much faster a horse runs than the player in Skyrim. It doesn't feel much, to be honest. Remember how I literally just mentioned the Stormcloaks send the recruits to freeze to death? Well, Rikka here decided to prove to them how much stronger she is by entering the next battle dressed like this. The Stormcloak Jedi are a dime a dozen, and aren't very strong. I suppose it's meant to be an overwhelm you with numbers thing. That said, there are a select few that have lightsabers, and they are pretty much a guaranteed one-shot on me if it's a heavy attack. Well, fortunately for me, they are very few and far between, and unlike in the movies, they can't block the lightning with their sabers. Once I take them out, I make sure to take all of their clothes to enchant them later, and now it's time to fight the boss of the dungeon. Thankfully, he isn't like a big named NPC, it's just a somewhat level Draugr, so in my case a Scourge, backed up by some restless forms. Me, realizing I am the weakest of the bunch, decide to put myself forward for minion cleanup duty as I just fight off the Restless while the Stormtroopers take on the Scourge. The Restless can't really stop me, and then, like the true evil that I am, I turn around and steal the Scourge kill from the others. Truly, I must be stopped. Before taking back the world's most uncomfortable headpiece, I then spent close to an hour travelling around the land and grabbing as many items to disenchant as possible. The most important of which for this run was a circlet that lowered the cost of destruction spells. Long story short, I made a couple of enchanted items to help lower the cost, and then after delivering the crown, got to see how cost effective it truly was in combat whenever the Jedi attacked Whiterun. Fortunately for me, they all forgot to bring their lightsabers, so I was able to let loose and not have to worry about getting my head lopped off by an incredibly aggressive glow stick user. Well, it's not long before the Jedi are wiped out, and so it's off to do similar tasks for the next 2 hours until I finish the Civil War. I am not trying to downplay the next few hours of footage, but it's just a lot of me walking into forts, blasting lightning at fools, and then skipping my way back to my soon-to-be subordinates for a pat on the head and a gold star. Travelling all across Skyrim did help me to cut down on backtracking later, mind you. One of the camps that I needed to visit near Morthal had me mark Ustengrav on the map for later, as well as travelling to Riften to blackmail a steward for information. That way I can fast travel back here when it's time to take Esbern out for a walk. Speaking of Riften, while I was here, I murdered Grello the Kind. Alright, I should probably go over this now. My other main task for this run was to join and complete the Dark Brotherhood. The master plan therefore being to take out Ulfric and his Jedi to put Skyrim under the control of the Empire, and then I can slip through the Dark Brotherhood's quests to find and take out the current Emperor. Does this actually put me in charge of the Empire? Pfft, of course not. But, damn it, we are role-playing today, so just work with me here. Anyway, on my way to Dawnstar, I rescue Santa Claus, no I'm not kidding, and I shall not elaborate, and then once I arrive in the village, I seem to confuse the guard who I'm meant to be delivering the falsified reports to.
35 Wait, I know you. Go. Is that so? I don't recognize you.
Do you know me or not? Which is it, man? After this, it's more fort killing. We all know how that goes. One interesting new tidbit here was the fact that the Stormcloaks seem to have gotten hold of some stealth camo. Good to know I'm not the only one who usually lets Meryl die. I can kill the invisible soldiers easy enough if I use my compass, but not knowing whether they have lightsabers or not is frankly terrifying. After taking yet another fort for the Empire, I began to notice that the damage of sparks was starting to fall off hard. The 10 points per second just wasn't going to cut it anymore, and I would need the 12 points to make things even just a little bit easier. Thing is, I cannot gain access to that until I raise it to level 70, and as anyone who has played Skyrim before knows, destruction takes a very long time to level up. So, I am going to use the glitch to power level it, and I'm going to show you how to do it as well. Right, so Creation Club items are now included in whatever version of Skyrim this is, like the 7th, whatever. Anyway, one of the items we want is a spell. Don't worry, I'm not going to be using this spell in combat. It's a glitch that doesn't even involve me casting it on anyone. By heading over to Hobbs Fall Cave, up near that lighthouse quest that everybody likes, we can enter said cave, and after fighting past some rather unremarkable necromancers and skeletons, the latter of which, like always, just crumple the instant a slight breeze graces their leg, we can find ourselves in this room, where, if we loot this chest, can find a bunch of spell tomes. These are all stupidly overpowered, by the way. It's the main reason why I have never even attempted a Skyrim with only Creation Club items run, as it would basically just be me speedrunning here to become an overpowered mage build. The tome we are after is the Unbounded Storms. If you are curious just how powerful this spell actually is on its own, here's some footage that I recorded after the run, and look how fast it kills these 2 dragons. Well, again, I will not be using it offensively, so after using sparks to whittle down and remove the last of the necromancers from existence, we can get on with the glitch. Some of you probably already know about this, as there are a lot of videos covering this. The one that I saw first was by Senpai Jake, so shout out to him for making me aware of this. Basically, all you have to do is activate the spell, and then, while it's active, open your map and fast travel somewhere, preferably to a point that is as far away as possible from where you are now. In my case, I make sure to travel to a location that I've already cleared out with the spark spell prior, to make doubly sure that I don't accidentally smite someone with this bolt of God. Once you load into your destination, you should notice when you open the menu that you have leveled up, and now when I check my destruction skill, as you can see, it is now 82. Why does this work? I don't know, but I'll take it. With all those increases in destruction, I am now level 18, and can use these perk points to not only unlock the 2nd rank of Augmented Shock for the extra 2 points of damage per second, but I can also take Disintegrate, which, as the name implies, has the chance to activate when a target reaches 15% of their overall health or below, and will instantly kill them and turn them into dust, assuming I'm using a shock spell. The more I think about it, Disintegrate was probably more worthwhile than the 2nd rank of the Augmented Shock, as it could potentially save a lot of time when trying to deal with enemies with larger health pools. Well, with my destruction as good as it needs to be, I went to work on my enchanting. All I need to do is first go to sleep so I can get the well rested XP bonus and... Alright, 1 second. Back to magical trinket making, and once I hit 60 in enchanting, I strap the fortified destruction enchantment on my robes, ring, necklace, and gut. And just like that, the shock spell only costs 1 point of magicka to use. I would call that power. Not a type of power that is forever and ongoing, but power that is only slightly limited by my enchanting skill. I got to test out my strength on a blood dragon right before one of the many fort takeovers. Yes, damage is still subpar to say the least, especially on a blood dragon, but they physically cannot beat me with this setup. I'll explain why at the first Alduin fight. I'm jumping ahead to taking over Windhelm as it's the next best part of the run. Not because I was able to disintegrate Stormcloak after Stormcloak, but because I got to watch Darth Vader wreak havoc on them instead. Probably comes as no surprise, but he is strong enough to take the majority of them out with a single slash. I barely have to do any of the work here, which honestly is how it should be given that I'm the Emperor after all. Speaking of, that's how it pretty much went down in the throne room when we encountered Ulfric for the final time. I wasn't one for speeches, so I just blasted him while he was sitting down. I may have instigated the fight, but I was not the one who fought it. Poor Ulfric barely even had time to stand up before Veda and Rikka started laying into him with their sabers. The same goes for Galmor to be fair, only I was able to get in one good zap when he was low enough to ashify him. That's not a word, but it is now. I then take the pleasure of dealing with Ulfric myself. Ah, damn it, that would have been the perfect time to have the do it meme if I made Vader kill him. Well, that's the Civil War over with. I suppose it's now off to deal with the Brotherhood. The first couple of minor contracts are nothing substantial. Find a person, walk up to person, and then give them the good old electric handshake buzzer, but dialed up to 11. If you think the first proper contract to hunt down Elaine the Bandit was any harder, you would be wrong. Okay, so Elaine himself and his bandits were a complete cakewalk. This random bear, however, was the real issue. I don't know what its problem was, but apparently he just really did not like me for some reason. I tried luring it to some of the bandits outside the ruins, but it just tore through them as well. After dying to the thing a few times, I just hid inside the ruins. Fortunately for me, it was gone by the time I decided to leave. There is a bonus if I take out Nilsen's Shatter Shield as well, but I don't care about this woman's problems, I'm only in this for me. After some snooping around in the cage of the Night Mother, we get told we are the listener and to look for Armand Mortieri to accept the big contract. Well, Astrid, the current leader, won't be having any of that. Fortunately, we can change her mind by going out and taking care of 3 more nobodies. Once we return, we are allowed to meet with the man and learn the big plan. I am going to assassinate the Emperor. Please feel free to use that out of context. Well, before that, we need to set up the kill, which, conveniently for this guild of assassins, is done by killing other people. First up is his cousin, Vittoria Vici. Now, all the following contracts have bonuses tied to them for taking out the target in a certain way, but I don't really care about that, so rather than wait for her to address her wedding guests, I instead just walk right up to the bride and give her my wedding present. Naturally, this gets the attention of the guards, but they aren't fast enough to catch me, so it's back to the sanctuary for stage 2, which is killing Gaius Maro, the son of the head of the current Emperor's security force, and planting incriminating letters on him, which makes it look like he was part of a plot to kill the Emperor. Rather than waiting for him to be somewhere secluded to take him out, much like Vittoria, I just walk up and blast him with sparks. Sure, he puts up more of a fight, along with the nearby security force, but I manage to take him out all the same. I will say there is absolutely no way they didn't see me plant the letter on his corpse. Whoops. We can worry about that in a few minutes. For now, it's time to fry a jester as Cicero has gone mad and attacked the Brotherhood. Well, more mad than usual anyway. We follow him to the not-so-hidden Dawnstar Sanctuary, seriously it's like a minute walk from the village, and start wiping the floor with the Sanctuary Guardians. I thought that the Udafrict was going to be tough, but it kinda just stood there screaming while I electrocuted it. To be fair, I would probably do the same in that situation. When I made it to the dying jester, I chose to just finish the job, when, to my surprise, he jumped up and started to attack. He isn't a hard fight, but props to him for tricking me like that. With the jester dead, it's finally time to take out the Emperor, except just wait, there's more. Even though I have shown that I can fight through a small horde of enemies by myself, I still need to sneak in as the chef. So we head to a random inn in the middle of nowhere, blast this orc, weekend at Bernie's corpse into the corner of the room, and then can poison the Emperor with a special root that we'll put in the soup. Except you don't actually have to use the poison. So instead I serve him up one final proper meal and then deal with him like everybody else. Unfortunately, he does not turn into a pile of ash. What a shame. Second, unfortunately, that wasn't the Emperor, but a decoy, and now the father of the messenger that we killed appears and reveals that he made a deal with a member of the Brotherhood, and that he is now altering the deal and is going to kill them all. The handful of guards he leaves to deal with me are about as weak as starting bandits, so once they're out of the way, it's back to the sanctuary to deal with more of them. They're all just as weak for what it's worth. No clue why they aren't leveled appropriately, but I'll take it. We manage to save Nazir and then climb into the Night Mother's coffin and fly through the nearby window, I guess. Once we are then rescued, we check the rest of the sanctuary for survivors. Anakin, no! Astrid here reveals that she was in fact the traitor. We say nuts to that, and now it's back to taking out the real Emperor. His ship is just outside of Solitude, which we can easily sneak aboard. Don't know why I wrote sneak there. As soon as I went inside, all hell broke loose as I killed every last sailor or guard that stood in my way. As for the Emperor himself,
or I prove Commander Morrow the fool.
Make that former Emperor. Yeah, no point listening to his speech, I've heard it all before, and we want to be Emperor now. With that, I have completed both of my primary tasks for the run, as well as getting the 20k reward for doing the deed, and then go and sit in the Emperor's throne up in Solitude for good measure. I could technically end the video here, but as the title is still Can You Beat Skyrim, I did go through with the rest of the main quest, so let's cover that quickly. I met the Greybeards and completed their trials without issue. The Necromancers and Frostbite-wielding Draugr and Ustengrav are of no issue given the whole sapping them with magic thing that Sparks has got going on. This leads into meeting the worst character, followed by the second mandatory dragon fight. Just like the Blood Dragon from before, kind of a complete cakewalk, especially given the fact he seems more focused on Delphine and pays me no mind while I circle him throughout the fight. I perform the Dance of Victory and then get to work going undercover. Again, magic users are an absolute joke given my near limitless supply of energy, so long as I keep backing up while fighting, they cannot touch me. I also bully the Frost Troll here for good measure and manage to save the prisoner, and Malborn, not that any of that has any relevance, so moving on. More Thalmor in the sewers add to the collective pile of dust bunnies down here as we rescue Esbern and take him out for a walk to Alduin's Wall, where thankfully him and Delphine light all the torches without fail, and I don't have to worry about the game breaking here as it's known to occasionally do. I would mention collecting the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition from Blackreach, but let's be honest, we all just skydive down to the centre of this place to be in and out as soon as possible. This leads to the first fight with Alduin, the tougher one, so let's slow down a little and explain how that went. It was a joke. Other than one point in the fight where he was just about able to get off his meteor shower attack, he never managed to land a hit on me. Normally, this is the hardest encounter in most runs, so what's going on here? Well, it's a combination of two things. Remember how shock spells drain magicka? Well, fun fact, dragons have a magicka pool that they use for shouts as opposed to a cooldown like the player. This means if you should drain all of their magicka, then they cannot shout again until it regens. Given how I will pretty much never let up with my assault, this means Alduin was constantly sitting at 0 magicka for the entire fight. Sure, he can still bite you from the front, but this is entirely circumvented by simply walking a few steps backwards and out of his melee range. After close to 2 minutes, he is forced to retreat, and all that's really left is heading straight to Sovngarde and doing the second easier fight. Before that though, I returned to Whiterun for one last set of enchanting grinding, and managed to get to 80, where I then took the stronger enchantments perk, which gave me just enough to make a new set of matching clothes that lowered the cost of destruction spells to 0. So, in other words, okay, yeah, the bar still drains, but there shouldn't be anything with enough health to outlast the onslaught. So with that, Alduin is defeated, the Empire is in control of Skyrim, in my mind I'm the Emperor, finishing the game, and proving yes, you can indeed beat Skyrim as Emperor Palpatine. The difficulty and challenge of this one were constantly fluctuating throughout the run, given the whole 1 minute they're powerful and 1 minute they're not in terms of the spark spell. Still, character-based runs are always fun, and for what it's worth, I have barely done any in Skyrim outside the Lone Wanderer and Big the Cat videos, so it was nice to change that today. Regardless, that's going to be in this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like, and you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe. Try to have one of these videos every week. My name is Nerbit, stay safe everyone, I'll see y'all in the next video.